Hi, this is History with me, Dan, and this is a video about Thanksgiving and something else that is on people's minds a lot, inflation. We're going to look into how the prices for a Thanksgiving dinner rose at a restaurant in Hartford between 1937 and 1970. The restaurant we're going to talk about was located in the Brownstone building at the corner of Trumbull and Asylum Streets. Built in 1861, it was home to the Brownstone restaurant in the late 70s and 80s. But before that, there was a restaurant here called the Capitol Grill, which opened in 1937 and closed in the mid-70s. Between 1937 and 1970, the restaurant advertised every year its Thanksgiving dinner. So how did those prices change in the course of 33 years? Well, in 1937, a full Thanksgiving meal with turkey was 75 cents. Now let's jump ahead 2 years to 1939. By this point, the price had increased 10 cents to a total of 85 cents. And there were now many more choices because patrons could get filet mignon or ham. Let's jump ahead again 2 years to 1941. Now there was an even bigger jump in price of 30 cents to $1.15. The entree choices were similar to those offered 2 years earlier. Now let's go forward 6 more years to 1947. The price had now jumped a whopping 85 cents to make the total $2. Diners were offered a choice of cocktails, and the main course options had expanded to include Maine lobster, lamb chops, and sirloin steak. Children under 10 ate at $1 or half price. The following year, the price had increased by another 25 cents to $2.25. One of the entree choices was roast Long Island duckling with applesauce. The age for the children's meal had now gone from 10 years old to 12 years old and was still $1. Now, what's interesting is the following year, 1949, the price actually went back to being $2, and the children's price remained $1. And a year later, in 1950, the price was still $2, although now the children's price had risen to $1.50. In 1951, the children's price was still $1.50, but the regular price had risen another 25 cents to $2.25, the price that it had been 3 years earlier in 1948. Over the next few years, the price for the turkey dinner didn't rise too much. It went from $2.25 in 1951 to $2.50 in 1958. The children's dinner was still $1.50. As for the other choices, prime rib, baked Virginia ham, and lobster were the same as the turkey at $2.50. But sirloin steak and filet mignon were now $3.75. 4 years later, in 1962, the price of Thanksgiving dinner had risen another 25 cents to $2.75, and the children's meal to $1.75. The $2.75 still covered various choices: turkey, prime rib, baked Virginia ham, spring chicken, or lobster. But 2 years later, in 1964, some of the entree choices were increased. Turkey, ham, and chicken were still $2.75, but prime rib had risen to $3, and lobster was $3.75. Filet mignon and sirloin steak returned to the menu, but they were now $1 more expensive than they had been in 1958, rising to $4.75 in 1964. A child's turkey dinner was still $1.75. Moving forward, in 1965, all of the entrees increased, with the exception of the filet mignon and sirloin steak. Turkey had gone from $2.75 to $2.95, as had the baked Virginia ham and the half-broiled spring chicken on toast. Prime rib had gone from $3 to $3.95, and lobster from $3.75 to $4.25. And the children's meal had gone up 20 cents from $1.75 in 1964 to $1.95 in 1965. Moving ahead another year, though, in 1966, prices fell back. Turkey and ham reverted to $2.75, which they had been 2 years earlier in 1964. The chicken was no longer on the menu. Roast beef went to $3.50, which was 50 cents more than it had been 2 years earlier, but 45 cents less than it had been just a year before. Lobster went all the way back to $3.50, which was actually a quarter less than it had been 2 years earlier. The filet mignon and sirloin steak, however, went up 15 cents to $4.90, and the children's menu remained $1.95. Jumping ahead another year to 1967, turkey was up 25 cents to $3. Ham was no longer on the menu. Prime rib remained $3.50, as did lobster. The steaks were still $4.90, and children under 12 still could get their turkey dinner for $1.95. There's still 3 more years left in our brief survey, so let's move on to 1968. Turkey had now gone up a quarter. Prime rib went up 50 cents. There was now baked jumbo shrimp for $3.75. Lobster went up 50 cents to $4, and filet mignon and sirloin steak went from $4.90 to $5.25. And the children's meal went up 5 cents to $2 even. The next year, 1969, turkey again went up 25 cents and was now $3.50. Prime rib went up a whopping 75 cents to $4.75. The shrimp went from $3.75 to $4.25. Lobster from $4 to $4.75, but there was also lobster tail for $4.25. And the steak stood pat at $5.25. A children's meal was not mentioned in the 1969 ad. This brings us to the final year of our survey, 1970. Turkey was still $3.50, prime rib $4.75, baked stuffed shrimp had risen 25 cents to $4.50, whole lobster was not on the menu, but the lobster tail had gone up a quarter to $4.50, and the filet mignon and sirloin steak had risen another quarter to top out at $5.50. The children's dinner was $2.25, a quarter more than it had been 2 years earlier. So after 33 years, things had changed quite a bit from what they had been in 1937. The turkey dinner had risen from 75 cents to $3.50. So in a little over 3 decades, the price of a turkey dinner had risen $2.75. But as we know, that is nothing compared to what a turkey dinner in a restaurant would cost you today. So thanks for watching this video, which gives us a glimpse of Thanksgiving in Old Hartford. In addition to subscribing to this YouTube channel, you can also now subscribe to my new Substack newsletter, Remembering Old Hartford. I'll put a link to it in the description below. Thanks for watching.